Good morning and welcome to the next episode of our podcast,
where we drink tea and navigate the balance between school and personal life.
I'm Sophia Safe.
And I'm Sophia Curry.
And this is Sip and Spill.
Welcome back to the Tea Journal.
The topic we'll be touching on today is the accuracy of personality tests.
So the first and really the only test on here that we're going to talk about is the 16 personality tests, or the MBTI test.
Mm-hmm.
And this test is based on Myers-Briggs principles, and Myers and Briggs were a mother and daughter who based their, personality findings and research on Carl Jung, who was the father of analytical psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of Jungian theories and teachings and concepts really on psychological personality typing, and he created the theory of psychological types and is perhaps one of the most influential creators in personality typology. So these have kind of inspired a number of key theories.
Mm-hmm.
One of his key theories key contributions really, was the development of the concept of introversion and extroversion, which we all know today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody's very familiar with those concepts, but this test kind of went a step further and took on 3 or really 4 new categories. So this test explores 5 different things, and we're going to break them down for you.
So it's also called the MBTI test because it's the Myers-Briggs type what was it?
I think it was
Myers-Briggs type indicator.
Type indicator. So they aimed more to make this more of a personality trait type test versus a type test, which this basically means trait-based rather than type-based, which allows for a fluid response. So it doesn't shove your personality into a singular category, hence a type, but rather shows the degree of your preference or your traits. So this go ahead.
Sorry, this means that this category isn't putting you into a box where you can move beyond what this says you are, you know what I mean?
And it's very specific. Now, you might have the same MBTI as someone else, but if you go into your breakdown of your score, they give you, percentages between, the 2 categories or the 2 options that you have within that, letter category. So to start off, we're gonna break them down. So there's 4 to 5 categories, really. The first one, as we said before, is extroversion versus introversion, which we're all very familiar with. Outward energy versus inward energy.
Yep. And then the next one is intuition and sensing, which measures essentially how you perceive information. So if you're sensing, that would mean that you're reliant on concrete facts, or more reliant on concrete facts. And if you are intuitive, or if you have intuition, you focus on patterns, ideas, and possibilities rather than something super concrete.
Yeah. And this is one that I find really interesting and fascinating, because I don't think a lot of people think of this as a personality trait. Intuition itself, yes, people are oh, I'm very intuitive. But in specifically to how they use intuition in this test, I don't think we really consider how everybody perceives information as a type of personality trait. And I think it's really cool to see that basically if you rely on concrete facts, it's not saying you don't rely on future things or future concepts, but you tend to focus more on what's right in front of you, versus if you're more intuitive, like Sophia said, you focus on future possibilities and you kind of let that guide you. And I just find that really interesting. Going along with, the extroversion and the introversion, and saying if you're more extroverted, you may have more social energy, or that's how you might like to recharge your battery, versus introverted people or prioritize their, solitude to recharge themselves or feel better, and they might prefer to be alone in certain situations. And you can kind of see these in the percentage breakdowns, how they go along together. And I love how this test kind of gives you a description and shows you oh, and this is how this goes with this. And through the percentage wise and all that. So I think that's really interesting. The next category that we have is thinking versus feeling. So this is your basis of decisions. Do you base your decisions off of logic, which would be thinking, or values, which is feeling?
And I feel like this goes pretty hand in hand with intuition and sensing. I feel like if you are a sensing person, which, like, again, that would be relying on concrete facts, you would base your decisions off of logic a lot more than you might on feelings. And someone who's very intuitive or, again, seeks patterns, ideas, and possibilities might base their decisions off of values a little more than they do logic. But then, of course, there are the in-betweens who are opposite, you know what I mean?
Yes. And I think it's probably very common to see an S with a T because of what Sophia just said. But again, like we said before, it's not to say that you don't rely on your values or you don't rely on logic if you're one or the other, but it's what do you at your core tend to prioritize when you're making your decisions. And again, this test uses very specific questions because, of course, in your day-to-day life, I think, most people use logic to create their decisions, but they pick very specific questions to say, like, in this situation, what feels more right to you?
Right.
And then next up we have judging versus perceiving, which is your preference for living.
And so this can be structured and planned, which would be judging, and then spontaneous and flexible, which would be perceiving.
Following that, we have the fifth and final trait, which would be assertive versus turbulent. So this is more of a confidence measure, and it's not really are you confident versus not confident, although that does play a role in it. But it's assertives, the first one, are more self-assured and less prone to stress. So they are very set in their decisions. I want to say they're more go with the flow, but I don't think that's like the proper phrase for it. But they know what they want. They're very aware of the situation and they go with it.
They take things as it comes.
Yes. And it's not to say they don't branch out or go outside of the box, but they rely more on that right in front of them, confidence, whereas turbulence can be self-conscious and more prone to stress. This often highlights perfectionists and success-driven people who are always eager to improve.
Yep. And then to move on to another kind of like personality indicator in a way, which is a little bit scary but also really cool to me, is zodiac signs.
Yes.
Which it's so interesting to see people being grouped together by the time at which they were born.
And it's kind of odd, but in a way, it's scarily accurate. And I don't know how that happens. And I've seen a bunch of other things, but like for me, I'm a Capricorn. So that's like they're not based in like month based, although there are 12. It's kind of like broken down like mid-month almost. So like mine I think is I believe it starts at December 22nd. But my birthday, which is actually coming up, and this is when this episode will be released, but I believe I want to say Capricorn is like December 22nd to like January 17th, somewhere in there. But it like I had like a zodiac phase in I want to say third grade.
Okay.
And I like got really into like what it was about. Oh, I was close. December 22nd to January 19th. But I got really interested in, what it tells you. So what it says for Capricorn specifically are Capricorns are known for being ambitious, disciplined, responsible, and hardworking. We often focus on long-term goals and practical success. We often appear serious or stoic, but we also have a loyal, tender side. And even if you just go, like, if you look up your zodiac and you literally go into images, like, there's so many things out there, and you can just find, like, basic traits: ambitious, persistent, determined, practical, stubborn.
Even going in Pinterest and looking up your zodiac sign can also help you find a lot. There are a lot of things out there that helps you really discover yourself, to be honest.
And there's a lot of different facets of zodiac signs. So like you'll have like a ruling planet, like a sign, an element. So like you'll have like cardinal directions, and then you'll have like who's most compatible with you. But then there's also like rising signs and moon signs and those types of things, or like what's your Venus or what's your whatever. So it's kind of like where the planets are in relation to, I think, other stars and constellations. And then those like and those kind of go into different types of like different facets of your personality, like, oh, what connects more to your love life or stuff like that. But like at its very basis and core, if you look up just like your, I think it's your, not your rising, like just your normal sign. I don't really remember what it's called. It like is usually pretty accurate. Like, and I've talked to my friends about it too.
I mean, like, I'm currently reading mine off of Google. I just looked up Gemini personality. I'm actually reading the AI overview, and just seeing this is very, very accurate to what I'm like. And it's shocking, genuinely. And
Yeah.
I live with my brother and my dad, who I don't consider anything similar to me, and they're both Geminis. And in seeing this and seeing them connect to it as well is very interesting, because I wouldn't consider us similar people. And yet all three of us connect to the same kind of personality traits that are attributed to Geminis.
And I think it shows how there's different ways to connect to this. Like, not everybody is the same way in terms of being communicative or stubborn or persistent, which is again why everybody has their own unique personality. But overarching, it just makes me wonder, like, how did that come about? Like, it just, even if you go on Snap, like there's a feature on Snap, when I had Snap, you can input your zodiac sign and it gives you all these other things. Like, I think my moon is in Cancer.
Okay.
And that just gave me, and it was like, it gave me a bunch of things about like my emotions in particular, because Cancers are very feeling.
Well, last year, like, Gemini's moon was in Pisces, I think, and so the past couple of years for a lot of zodiac signs has been really hard, according to like that in general. It's very,
according to the constellations, the cosmos.
I love zodiac signs. Don't get me wrong. I haven't really gotten to the niche, but I do want to. And even reading like a horoscope is surprisingly accurate, like especially for the next year. It's very interesting to see what might happen.
If you guys actually go back to episode 7, when we were with Natalie and Wima, we went on like a small tangent about zodiacs, and after we concluded the episode, we looked up our horoscopes and we're going through it, and then we were reading through like yearly horoscopes, and me and Sophia just looked up our yearly horoscope again just to like reiterate it. They were hugely accurate,
especially reading last year's, which is really funny, which I wanted to see if last year's would be accurate, and it was.
So for mine, it says Capricorn 2025 horoscope suggests a year of building stability and responsibility. So focusing on career goal growth, financial gains, and personal transformation, with themes of family review, self-worth, health streamlining, and deepening relationships through hard work and dedication, leading to potential financial rewards, new opportunities, especially in the latter half of the year.
And that latter half of the year is, surprising enough, when we would get our early decision letters back from college we might go to.
Well, that's 2025. Not 2026.
Shoot. Oh my God.
You got really excited.
I got really excited. Dang it.
It's okay.
Oh, it's okay.
But it's still true, because in the beginning of the year, this was last year.
Oh my God, I thought 2025 was this year.
Now obviously I don't have a career. Like, I have a job, but that was mid-year that I got it, but I don't have like a career to grow. But in terms of personal transformation, I experienced huge personal transformation, and Sophia can vouch for that. And she saw like me gained new opportunities in the latter half of the year and all of that, and I just thought that was so interesting. And we were all like, when we were all looking it up, we were like, what the heck?
Yeah, it was surprising. I think Lima didn't agree too much with hers on a couple different things, so it's not going to be completely accurate for everyone.
But the fact that it's accurate about anything at all
is insane.
Yeah. What did yours say?
Well, for Gemini 2020, well, this is what Google says. For Gemini 2025, expect a year of significant changes, especially around home, family, and friendships, with potential career shifts driven by Uranus's long-term influence, increased financial opportunities after mid-May, and a need for balance between ambition and careful planning, particularly with Saturn's challenging transits later in the year, according to various horoscope predictions. And it says, focus on nurturing meaningful connections and trusting your intuition, as new friends could be lifelong while navigating increased responsibility, and self-redefinition, which I wholeheartedly agree with the redefinition part.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know this. Like, I feel like I started focusing on my values a lot in
Yeah.
the latter half of the year. And surprisingly enough, I actually got a job at
Yeah.
the end of the year, which this kind of predicted with when it said increased financial opportunities.
Yeah. And I think even with mine, when it said I had increased financial opportunities because I also got a job, it was just more mid-year. But
Yeah.
it's just so odd. And so I took the liberty of looking up the one for this year for me. And it says a year of steady growth, strategic career moves, and financial stabilization, with early months bringing potential relationship challenges that resolve into deeper connection by year's end. Expect opportunities for leadership, teamwork, and rewarding achievements, particularly in the second half, emphasizing adaptability and long-term planning, which that sounds very college-centric, which is very scary for me.
It does sound very college-centric.
Which is exciting and terrifying. And you know what? I kind of want to come back at the end of the year
and see if it's
accurate when we and say like, hey, first episode of the year, now we're going to do like an end of year reflection. How accurate was this?
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea.
So yeah. But they're just so, like, they're crazy accurate. And it makes me wonder who thought of this? Like, who came up with this? And, like, who was studying the cosmos that hard to be like, people who were born between this day and this day seem very similar in this way.
You're right.
But anyway, yeah, I think the main takeaway would be, exploring your personality, specifically with the Myers-Briggs test, like the MBTI, I think is a great way to learn why you might be doing things or the type of person you might be. And it can it might give you like clarity into other things and how to fix certain facets of your life. Same with the zodiacs. Because maybe it gives you something to trust in. Be like, hey, maybe there will be good things for me this year.
So that pretty much wraps up our tea journal for this week.
Welcome to Tea and Textbooks, where we talk about the academic aspects of high school.
For today's segment, we are going to be talking about college essays and how it relates to our personality.
So the first thing is what college essays should be centered on. So these are, you can talk about what are your passions, career aspirations, what are significant events in your life, and personal growth in relation to your personality that you've experienced.
And like the connection to this episode is the fact that an MBTI or your zodiac sign can really help discover who you are as a person, especially if you're not fully aware of that yet.
And even if you feel like you are, it gives you insight that you may not have considered in the past. I know, like, when I read, like, the breakdown of, like, when I took the MBTI test, I was like, wow, I never thought about that, or I never realized that's something that I might do. And that can kind of, like, if you think about it, it can kind of also narrow down, like, wait, that was a significant event in my life because I saw a shift in my personality growth here. Or, like, if, say, for example, your MBTI says, like, hey, you might need to work on your communication with others.
Right.
And one of your passions might be working with people or doing anything, honestly, in business, medical, lawyers, anything you want to do, really. I think you have communication. But you can say, like, hey, I had a massive transformation in how I communicated with my one friend. Like, we had a huge fight and I learned how to communicate with them more effectively, and then you can tie that into your career aspirations of, I personally grew here, which can help me to be a better lawyer or be a better doctor.
Absolutely. To move back into a little bit of the college essays, like, centric, a lot of colleges nowadays want to see less of a well-rounded student. Of course, that's a good thing, but more of a spike in your narrative where you're doing things, but then there's one thing that you're doing so much of because that is your end goal.
Yes.
And that can be in relation to your personality, your career passions, or career aspirations and passions in general. And so, for example, like, I want to talk about my aspirations in my career, and so I would talk about the things in my life that I do that are centered around that and the growth that I've had in relation to that.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I don't want to say really specific to your, but like it doesn't, like, if you want to go in the medical field, it doesn't necessarily have to be like medically centered.
Right.
Like, for example, I want to help people. Like, I want to be a doctor. I want to help people. And over this past year, I was able to experience something that was really tough, but allowed me to kind of rethink my view on life and rediscover why I want to help people and my passion. And it wasn't medically centered at all. Like, it wasn't centered around being a doctor or helping people or going through my own medical hardship. It was more just like a personal event in my life that had nothing to do with like anything medically related, but it allowed me to rediscover that passion and say like, and like even have a new look on it and just like deepen that.
And these events don't necessarily have to be anything big either. They can be something very, very small in your life, like working at a job. You know what I mean? And it can be, and a lot of essays that were very successful were about very small things that happened.
I think the biggest thing is, colleges look for authenticity. And I think we know that, but we also tend to get caught up in what is something like major that's happened to me, or what is something that I feel like colleges would be like, wow. But if it's significant to you, that's what colleges want to see.
Absolutely.
You just, of course, have to explain why it was significant to you and how that created such a personal growth for you. And again, like connect it to your passion or your career interests and say like, hey, this was a significant event for me because I was able to shift my mindset here or grow here, or I felt deeply impacted, in this aspect of my life. So like I encourage you, don't overthink it. And one of the things that I've seen recommended and I've started doing myself again, which you guys can also see in our TikToks that we have now started posting, yay, journaling.
Absolutely.
And we've talked a lot about journaling in the past, but chronicling your day, just reflecting on it and just being like, okay, like, dear diary, this is what happened today.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not being deep and profound, like, you don't have to be deep and profound, but come college essay time, you can like reread those and see like
your growth.
You really can, because you're inevitably going to change over the course of a year.
And it doesn't even have to be a big thing. Where I do something called junk journaling, where I take tiny things from throughout my day and I keep them in my journal. And I like to like go with the flow, you know what I mean? Keep it as it comes and roll with the punches. I'm gonna keep going with these metaphors, but I just, like, last night at 2 a.m. I was writing my journal entry and I was dead tired, so I wrote what I wanted to. I wrote a very simple sentence about, History Day, for example, which is what I'm doing as of now.
Yeah. And so like I don't want to say chronicling your life because it sounds so like, oh, I'm being profound, but just like writing about your day and reflecting in that way. And then when you're able to come back to it and reread it and like reflect on where you are now versus where you were then, you can see the growth. Like, even if me and Sophia were to go back and listen to our very first episode, you can see the growth even there.
Very clearly.
Although we won't go back and listen to that because we don't like the sound of our voice.
No.
We don't like to hear our own voices. But
hilariously enough.
But it is definitely in there. So don't overthink it. But you can this also shows the importance of finding your truth, which is, again, where those personality tests and maybe diving a little bit deeper into who am I, like, how do I present to the world that I might not realize I present? And finding that and learning a little bit more about yourself is so important because it gives you an outside perspective and something else to consider when you reflect on your life, which is really great for a college essay.
And very many juniors in high school don't yet know what their narrative is for their essay, and where they're like, they want their spike to be. Yeah. And so taking a personality test or an MBTI test can really help you learn about yourself and maybe find that spike, that narrative.
And then you can also consider, do you feel that your personality is accurately represented by this test? So, like, again, the MBTI test is trait-based, not type-based. So it shows you kind of where you fall on a spectrum between two categories within, that one overarching category. So, like, if, for example, you were more like 55% extroverted and 45% introverted, you can be like, wow, how do I see that reflected in my life? And do I feel like that's an accurate representation? And do I see myself, participating in more social things? Or do I like to participate in leadership things and talk and, be a leader of a group versus someone who just participates in a group? So, like, that's just like one example of how that can be reflected in your interests and then how you've grown. Like maybe you started out like being a member of the group and just liking to do group projects and those types of clubs, and then you rose to be like, why don't I become a leader? And you realize like, wow, there was growth. Like, I grew my more extroverted side, even though if I connect more with an introverted side, I might be a little bit more extroverted, or I've seen growth in that area, and that connects to your interest in growth. So that's also, can connect to the importance of finding your truth. And then also, how has your personality affected your interest in growth in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, you tend to do things that you want to do. People tend to do things that they want to do. I feel like it's a very simple concept, but
yes,
when you're thinking about that, you really see when you're finding that narrative. I'm sorry. When you're finding that narrative, you really see that the things you've been doing in your life are really centered around what you want to like end up accomplishing.
Yeah. And again, like this is why I think taking those personality tests is so important, because like specifically the MBTI test, like at the end of the test, it doesn't just give you like a 4-letter code. It assigns you like kind of like a character, I want to say. Like there's like the protagonist, the leader, the whatever. Yeah. And it tells you like how you may act in your day-to-day life or things that you might want to consider doing.
It gives you an entire article about yourself essentially, and it breaks it down into a couple sections, one of which is a career section.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I probably did, and I probably forgot about it.
I actually recently got an email where it's like your career breakdown, and it was like, I know what I want to do in my life, but hilariously enough, what I want to do is exactly what my MBTI is telling me to do. Yeah.
I wonder, because I screenshotted all my stuff, I wonder if I screenshotted the career section, because I wanted to save it, because that test, I'm gonna be honest, guys, it's long.
It's long.
It's long. So like mine is an ENFJ, or I've been labeled as a protagonist. I see career. Okay, so I found it. Your career path is likely to be driven by a deep-seated need to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. Wow.
Very accurate.
Okay, there you go. You thrive in roles that allow you to inspire, guide, and develop others, making you an excellent teacher, counselor, or team leader. Your natural charisma, I don't know if that's true.
That is true. I disagree with that. That is true.
Okay, sure. An ability to articulate a compelling vision. Okay, that's true. I do articulate visions. Make you a standout in fields like human resources, public relations, or nonprofit management. While you excel in collaborative environments and roles that involve personal interaction, you may find yourself less fulfilled by solitary or highly analytical work.
So actually, if you are logged into your 16 personalities, like I have an email, like an account. Yeah, that's what it is. I have an account.
I don't have an account.
There's something called a career suite, which you have to pay for, hilariously enough. But in an email, it does give you a small little sneak peek into it. And one of those things was like a psychologist, I think. Hilariously enough, that's very similar to what I want to do.
Did you pay for it?
No.
Oh, wait, it just gives you a sneak peek. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Dumb. Anyway.
That is not true.
This reminds me actually of something we did at school, and some people might know this depending on who's listening. We did something called Zello.
Oh, God.
And Zello makes you take like a personality test, and they tell you like what careers are best fitted for you. My goodness, was mine accurate? Sophia's pointing at she's 96% feeling right now.
Which Sophia, on our car on the way to school, she was talking about the fact that like, oh, I don't think like I'm very feeling, like I'm very like I feel like I base a lot of my decisions off of logic, and I was like,
oh no, that's not what I said.
But that is what you said.
I said I don't think I do that as much. I think I still base a lot of my decisions on logic, but I do still do a lot of things based on my feelings.
Right,
words in my mouth.
I'm kidding. Sorry.
I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
All right. Anyway, continue.
But I don't know. Just seeing that percentage breakdown is very interesting to me, because your MBTI is based on these percentages. Like I feel like if you're in between a certain percentage, that's how you get assigned your personality type.
And I think we'll come back later in a TikTok separate to this,
Mhm.
and I'll make an account and all of this so I could save it and I can go back into it. And me and Sophia will share our breakdowns of and how we feel like it reflects in our life and our career stuff.
And in addition to that, we'll retake it as well.
Yeah.
And so it'll be like the
I mean, I
most
have
recent
to.
version of ourselves.
I do
You
have to retake it.
I'll just do it just because I want to see the difference between, like, I know right as of right now, last year I think I was, or 2 years ago now, I was very like on the cusp. I was like 50 something percent like introverted, and now I'm 60%, or like as of like what I have here.
Interesting.
And so I got more introverted over time, and I want to see if that changed.
I was 75% extroverted. I'm 69% feeling. So I was pretty spot on in saying I do base a lot of my feelings, but I do still have, those logical stuff. Yeah, mine was 70%, 71% judging, which means I do like, wait, what was that?
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it was judging versus like perceiving or perspecting, which means I like a structured plan thing, which is very true because I hate when people just don't tell me what's going on, or like we make a plan last minute. It's so like, I mean, I do make plans last minute,
which is why you have that like space, right?
Yes, but also when I make a plan last minute, I make a plan last minute. Yeah, it's not like I make a idea.
I feel like I'm a little bit more on the cusp where I'm 68% prospecting, which is like I am a very spontaneous and go with the flow person, flexible.
Really?
But I do
could never imagine being that way.
Like I do have a plan. I like plans.
No, I know.
I like planning. But then again, like I am very flexible. I like doing things on the spot. Whenever my mom and I are out, for example, like if we're out for like an appointment or something, I'll be like, "Hey, you want to go get breakfast or something?" And then she'll be like,
I do that. Yeah, which I guess is why it's 71%. But I just like I do appreciate structure. But anyway, to resort back to our main theme concept here, a lot of these things you can see how much me and Sophia agree versus disagree on certain things and how we feel like it's been reflected, and like just the fact that we do or don't disagree with our results shows how we're like aware of where we're at and how like I've kind of been able to base my career decision off of that type of stuff.
Right.
And just the fact that, like it said in the career, like I do want to help people and make a meaningful impact in people's lives. And that is exactly why I want to be a doctor. Absolutely. And that's, so it gives really good insight. Of course, like we said earlier, you just need to answer honestly.
Yeah.
Because it can only give you the most accurate depiction by doing that. So I think the main takeaway would be, putting a little effort, like time and effort into discovering a little bit more about yourself, might not be like such a bad thing. Like take personality tests. Like they're fun.
They are.
Like it's interesting.
It takes a long time.
Well, this one specifically
does. What happens after is fun.
But even if you like literally sit there and look at your zodiac sign, you can learn a lot about yourself.
No, absolutely.
And you can depending on who you are, like I'm kind of nerdy, so of course I'm not shocked at all that I fell down a rabbit hole with that one.
Me too.
But if you do fall down that rabbit hole, it's not a bad rabbit hole to fall down. Like it's interesting.
It has like a table and tea waiting for you down there in that rabbit hole.
Okay, sure. Anyway, so
that pretty much wraps up our tea and textbooks for this week.
Okay. Welcome to car sessions. So obviously this is our very first car sessions. Sophia's gonna look stupid because she's holding her phone so we can read off our script, which is basically nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously we're in a car, but basically, well, I need that. Basically, so here we just spend a little bit of time in the car to have a casual conversation about the going-ons of life and its connection to our theme.
So basically, we just came back from winter break and the new year, and we want to talk about how your personality can change over time and how it can apply to different aspects of your life.
Yeah. So I think our overarching theme today is all about like the personality test. And we both know our like 16 personalities, like MBTI. I'm an ENFJ.
J? Oh yeah.
I'm an ENFJ.
And I'm an INFP.
So the only things that we have flipped are, you said the first and last letters. Yes. So like and we'll go into this further in like the tea journal and our brutal honesty, but like I feel like coming back from the new year, it's always hard to kind of everybody knows it's like hard to come back from like winter break, but I definitely think that some people come back more introverted and and it takes them like a hot second to warm up to people again because like especially because ours was 2 weeks long, so like you're isolated from like everybody at school.
And it really does depend on how much you were able to interact with other people outside of school. That really kind of not determines, but it kind of predicts whether you're going to be more introverted or extroverted when you come back to the school day.
And I'm not gonna lie, it's like kind of awkward sometimes coming back talking to some people. You're like, oh, like haha, like Happy New Year, and they're like, oh yeah, I know, because everybody comes back and they're like saying Happy New Year, and it's like it reminds me kind of like those texts that you send, like the Merry Christmas text or the Happy whatever or Happy New Year that you like send to like people that sometimes there are people who send it to like people they literally never talk to.
Right.
Like Natalie's talking to me about how like people text her and she's like they actually like kind of annoy me. Like not like the person, like the text. Because she's like, I literally never talk to you. And like it's just like the one person sent her a text. And literally all it is it's sincere, but it's not. But it literally all it's been has been Merry Christmas and then the next holiday, Merry Christmas.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. And I think when I was younger, and this just shows like how like your personality grows, but also like maturity grows. I used to, and I don't want to say I used to do that because I would send it to people that I talked to. Like it wouldn't be like people I never talked to, but I send it to people I like wasn't close with. And I was like, why do I do that? And then I stopped doing that. Like as the years went on, I just started sending it to people that I talk to like on a regular basis. But I feel like it's always so awkward coming back because everybody's like, oh, like Happy New Year. And you're like, oh, Happy New Year. And you're like, we never say this to each other. Like this is kind of the most we say. And like teachers will say it to you in the hallway. And I'm like, bro, I don't, you're not even my teacher. I don't know you.
I feel like it's an especially weird time because like wishing someone a happy like holiday at all feels a little bit more like you would do it with someone you talk to as often. And so it's kind of a little weird when someone you don't really know as much says it.
And I think that really shows like who's super extroverted and who's super introverted because like I feel like immediately coming back, like there's like the term ambivert where you're like, you're like healthily in the middle, like you're a mix of both like an extrovert and an introvert. And I feel like I have more ambivert tendencies because like there are times where I really just want to be alone and I just want that like solitude and I'm like I don't want to talk to anybody.
I think both you and I were in like the near 50% range when we were like taking our MBTIs in terms of like E and I.
Yeah, like we'll talk about this later more too about how are like how the MBTI works, how the 16 personalities test works and like the breakdown and all of that. But I honestly think like for that it's like pretty accurate. Like I only think the one thing that's not as accurate I think was I said like the thinking and feeling one. Like I'm an ENFJ, so it says like I base most of my decisions on like my harmony and values, which is true to an extent, but I also think I base a lot of things on logic, and I think it just depends like on the questions they ask me. But that's again where you go back into like the percent breakdown, and you're like, okay, how much do I present of whatever trait? So like, I definitely think it's like a healthy mix, and you can see it coming back from school because like there are certain people that I'm like I'm thinking of like one person in particular because like I have class with them and I was like immediately coming back from school I'm like like I'm sorry, like I don't have the energy, I don't really want to talk to you right now, like but like there are other people at that table that I like do want to talk to because like I'm closer to them, so I feel like my more extroverted tendencies when coming back from like an extended period of time, like even like school, like even when school just starts, like coming back for an extended period of time is when I like feel like okay, it's time to like come back into it, and I tend to be more extroverted when I have like when I'm around my closer friends because I'm like I find it easier to talk to them, and then when I'm around people that I'm not as close with I'm more introverted.
I can see that, but I also feel like because like as an introverted person I feel like I'm expending a lot of energy when I'm with people that I don't really talk to as much. And so when I'm with people that I do know, sometimes I start to like crash a little bit and like relax a little bit. So I become a little bit more quiet. But it really does depend on the person.
Yes. Yeah, like I think that's what I mean. But I think because again, you lean more on the introverted side and I lean more on the extroverted side. So I think I find it a little easier to come back and like talk to people and like I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like not be introverted.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So that's what's going on
Yeah.
in life.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode.
I hope you'll join us next week on
Sip and Spill.